done this before. I'm not a leader naturally, and
Mhm.
I don't know if I belong in this room.
You grew up with that idea and you're like, well, what's the point in trying any of that? Because this is how I am. That's fixed mindset.
Saying like my road rage is a problem and I need to work on it, and that's like more of a growth mindset. Hey everyone, welcome to Chocolate and Spice Talk. I'm Nidhi, 40-year-old, mom to a 7-year-old, a techie, an extrovert, and somebody who loves the outdoor, a good adventure, and probably saying yes to more things than I should.
Yep, I agree with that. Hey, everybody, I am Neha, 45 years old, a techie. I'm the quieter sister of the two. I am a mom to a 20 years old. I am a thinker and somebody who likes to observe before jumping in.
And on this podcast, we talk about life, work, parenting, sisterhood, all the messy, funny, real stuff in between.
And today we're talking about something that shows up in all of this, and that is our mindset.
Specifically, are we stuck in a fixed mindset or are we growing?
Yep, and that's because sometimes the biggest thing that's holding us back is the story we're telling ourselves for years.
So let's start with the basics. So the whole concept comes from Stanford's psychiatrist named Carol Dweck, and she spent decades studying why some people thrive when they face challenges and others just crumble. And she found it comes down to what you believe about your own capabilities.
Yep. So, what we're saying then is that fixed mindset is sort of the belief that your intelligence, your talent, and your personality, they're set in stone. You're born with a certain amount of all of that, and that's it. So, you either have it or you don't.
Exactly. And on the opposite side, the growth mindset is a belief that you can develop your abilities through effort, learning, and persistence. So you might not be good at something yet. And that word yet is very powerful because then you can go from there. And growth mindset, people see the same situation as compared to the fixed mindset completely differently. Like failure isn't evidence that you are unintelligent, it is just a springboard for growth.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's get practical and sort of talk about what are the areas in everyday life where we see fixed versus growth mindset. I can start. So one of them is obviously, relationships, right? Because people like in the case of people with fixed mindset, they would often think relationship is where you want to put your partner on a pedestal and you want to have this like 0 or 1, like they are the perfect partner and this is who they are. But people with growth mindset are able to acknowledge and understand that partners have faults, that they can grow, that they can help them grow, and that they will grow along in this relationship as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes from we are just not compatible to every relationship has challenges and how do we work through it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So the next one is I feel career is another huge one. And I've seen so many women, especially women of color, turn down opportunities because of the fixed thinking is like, I've never done this before. I'm not a leader naturally. And
Mhm.
I don't know if I belong in this room.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost the, what's the term? Imposter syndrome, right? Like imposter syndrome is basically like a fixed mindset in some sort of dress or a coat.
It's like I'm not good enough and somebody's going to see that I'm not good enough instead of saying like I'm learning and growing and I belong here because I'm putting in so much work into it.
Yeah. Another one is health and fitness, right? I feel like a lot of people give up on their own health because of some fixed ideas that they might have inherited as they were growing up or as a kid, where somebody said, hey, you look a certain way, you're always been a certain weight, hey, you're not athletic or you're chubby or oh, you look so weak, you cannot possibly do push-up. And then you grow up with that idea and you're like, well, what's the point in trying any of that? Because this is how I am. That's fixed mindset.
Exactly. Even something as small as road rage. It's like you get really angry when somebody cuts you off and you say, that's how I am. I just shout and I get angry instead of saying, like, my road rage is a problem and I need to work on it. And that's like more of a growth mindset.
Oh yeah, yeah. The another one that I can think of is cooking. Um, I never cooked growing up, and I just assumed I'm going to be a terrible cook after, like, especially after marriage, where, we have discussed roles and responsibilities. But yeah, I thought, like, okay, I need to start cooking. And because I'd never cooked, obviously I wasn't really much of a cook, and things weren't turning out good. And I was like, okay, I'm a terrible cook. There is no point even trying. But really, it is a matter of practice. It is a matter of you wanting to do something and then putting your heart and soul to it, and then it's going to turn better. So I would proudly declare that I can cook now.
That's great. That's a growth mindset, right? You're not saying the world is happening to me. You're saying that how can I learn and grow from what has happened to me, right?
Yep, I know. All right. So, Nithi, let's get a bit more personal now. So, would you say you've always had a? I know the answer to that, but let's share with our audience. Like, would you say you've always had a growth mindset, or were there parts that were fixed? And where do you think any of that came from?
I would say that from the very beginning, I think I did have a growth mindset, and I don't think it showed in a very clean and perfect way from the time I was little. I think it came from the fact that, I was more extroverted and I was bolder, and I was honestly didn't worry about what people thought of me. People pleasing, which was not my thing. And as we have discussed in other episodes, like being a younger sibling, I had like less of that responsibility of being the perfect daughter, so I had like this carefree attitude where I just pushed boundaries. If my parents said no, it was like, oh, they mean not yet. That doesn't mean no, it's a maybe, right? So from the very young age, I trained myself to filter out things that I didn't want to hear. And that has its own pros and cons. Like, on one hand, it made me very resilient. It made me somebody who doesn't really get knocked down easily, but it also meant that I became stubborn, and many a times I did kind of avoid good advice. So, some of the cons. But like, one of the example is like, one of the biggest example is I followed your career path, and like when you did engineering, I was like, everybody said, okay, let's let her also do engineering, and that's what I did. But when I graduated and I got my first job, I realized this did not come naturally to me. In a room full of people, I realized that this is not easy for me. I can see this thing so easy for others. Why is it so hard for me? I was trained for 4 years. And that's when I realized, oh, maybe this is not a good fit for me. And then, I was in a one girl in a 10 boys team, and they would say, oh, she's just here for brand value, which was obviously sexist and dismissive. But it's also reinforced something I already knew, is that I'm not naturally gifted in that lane. So instead of saying, oh, I suck, I'll always be a mediocre team player here, I just knew I need to get out of here, and I need to do something that was more aligned to what I wanted to be. And that's when I got out of there. I started to figure out what is the next best thing for my strengths. And I started, getting into, I got an MBA degree, and I moved more towards like product and strategy and consulting, which was more of my strength. So that's like, I didn't just accept that this is what I was trained in and this is the lane I should stay in and this is my life now. Instead, I got out and I just feel like I'm flourishing. So it's like a lot of self-awareness too that played a part. So from the very beginning, I knew that you are the intelligent one, like obviously in a family, and you are the intelligent one. Like, I mean, come on, we have talked about it. Like, you are the smart one, and I was the playful one, let's say. I mean, if we have, that was a label put on me, so I was very self-aware of it, but I didn't let that play against me. I was like, all right, just because I'm not labeled as smart, that doesn't mean I have to go down a really wrong path. I can still, not be defined in a box, and I can lean to what naturally helps me.
Yeah, very interesting. Uh, well, for me, actually, you know what? The thing that we haven't talked about is the spectrum in which growth and fixed mindset could exist, because it is all, everything in this world is relative, I believe. And like, even this is very relative. Like, when compared to my husband, to be honest, I definitely feel like I have far more of a growth mindset than him. He is more towards a fixed mindset. And I will say, like, I have been creative most of my life. So what that means is like figuring out solutions that are not typically, that typically wouldn't have been the solution for that, right? Like, so that's how I define creativity, which is like can I think beyond what is the obvious solution? And a more frivolous example of that would be clothes, right? Like, I have a very hard time just giving up clothes or donating or throwing it away. I will first try everything under the sun to reuse it. And that just comes from one attachment to something, but also the idea of like, how can I sustain it and how can I keep it longer? An example of this is this dress, right? This is your dress. You gave it to me. I don't remember why. Like, okay, out of the goodness of your heart, perhaps. But
It didn't fit me, by the way. That's why.
okay. But yeah, I mean, you gave it to me, and it's actually too large on me. It's a little too big, and I'm always conscious of how to wear it. And but I love the color and I love the feel, and it's so comfortable. And so I typically like layer it with something. I don't want to give it up, so I laid it with this shirt. Like, this is a very obvious clear example, but then there are many such examples where I will cut out a dress if it's too long, or make a shirt out of it if it cannot fit as a dress, and things like that. So that is an example indeed of a growth mindset, where I am making sure I don't just like do the obvious thing of let's discard something that does not work, but figure a way out. And I do the same things, like, if for example in my job or my career, if I'm offered roles or projects that, I don't know, I might think it is not something I'm suitable for, but I will still give it a try if I'm interested in it. So the key thing here is, if I'm interested in something, and if I believe it'll do me good, I'm capable of taking it. I am, however, not a huge risk taker. So I know you talked about how you were the more extroverted, more playful person who would try different things. I will only try something if I believe it is going to be to my benefit. I will not get hurt, and that I will enjoy, and I'm willing to try it. So I definitely lean into learning something new, whatever that might be, whatever that new topic might be. A great example of that is speaking on camera, right? Like, I have been I posted my first video long back, like years back. And I remember you saying, "Hey, how are you even doing that? You're such an introvert. Like, how are you doing it?" And I was like, "I'm just gonna do it. What's the worst that's gonna happen? People are gonna laugh at me." But it was in my mind a low risk thing. I will just go and speak on camera, and because I do like to share my thoughts, that seemed like a good way for me to improve upon that. So that's how I started. Not that I am any better speaking at camera, but the point is, I
Come
didn't
on. You are so much better. I mean, we've gotten so much practice, and we have put this is going to be a 42nd episode, right? And we got a lot of criticism, at least I did, when we first started, like, last summer, where people would be like, oh, that's why you never spoke in front of camera before, because you don't sound very well. You sound so bad. You have such a you look different. I would have never imagined your voice is so thick. And there are people who started comparing both of us. Oh, your sister is so melodious and you are not. And but that didn't stop us from reaching the
yeah.
42nd episode, right? I mean, who cares if you think I don't sound very well? So yeah.
Agreed. I mean, and that's a growth mindset. I mean, you want to do something, you're enjoying it, you believe it's helping people, you believe it's helping you, do it. That's the growth mindset. All right. Let's talk about fixed mindset though. Like, have you had a time where in your life where you were in a fixed mindset, and did you grow out of that?
Yeah, I think one of the time when I did have a fixed mindset was when I got pregnant. And at that time in my life, I think I had a very fixed mindset because I didn't have enough exposure, enough experience, and enough empathy around people around me. So like I got pregnant in my early 30s, and I we were trying. I talked to the doctor. Doctor said it takes 6 months, and when we started trying, I got pregnant in the first month. So I thought that's a norm. Again, it was through because of lack of knowledge, lack of exposure. I did not have any friends who had, kids. I did not have any pregnant friends. I was surrounded by single people or like just couples. So I had nothing to compare it with. And I had no real awareness that for so many people, this is hard, emotional, and complicated. So I regret now that I spoke very casually about it. My intention was never to be insensitive because I did speak very casually. It's like, oh yeah, we tried, and first month I got pregnant, and I was like, I mean, you know it because I spoke that way to you too. So you also did point out later in my life when I was a wiser that maybe that was not the best thing to do, and it was certainly not thoughtful. And later, when people opened up to me about their fertility struggles or how long they have been trying, it really hit me. And that was the time I realized how important words are and how much more respectful and careful we need to be with something that's personal. So it was like, I think that was the time I had this sudden like burst of like empathy and realization that, oh my God, this is not norm. Or I shouldn't just expect that it happened to me easily, that is what happens to everybody. Like everybody's experience is different, and you should be more considerate. So I think I was operating from a very fixed place. But then I think this experience just helped me like transform, and it brought so much compassion in me, and I just feel like I'm such a better person now. Now I'm much more sensitive, whether it's motherhood, pregnancy, parenthood, and I'm just much better person. But that was the time when I felt like I was just not wise. That's all I can say. Yeah. What about
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have a similar scenario, but a completely different response, which is like for me, motherhood was also a place where I feel like I had a very fixed mindset, but in a different way. I got for our viewers, I got pregnant earlier, like in my mid 20s, and like I was pretty young at that time, and a lot of my understanding of what pregnancy should be or what motherhood should be came from what I'd heard from my own parents and the society around me. And I pretty much took those words as law, not even guidance, but as laws. Like, okay, this is how a baby should be brought up, this is what a baby should be fed. And if somebody would be like, oh, you should feed this much of milk, oh, you're not breastfeeding, oh, you're not, like, you stopped at this point, which, by the way, not that I need to justify anything, it still continued for a year, but I would still get comments. And so it made me, I was always in that little fixed little bubble of, oh, here's what the society is telling me, here's what everyone's telling me, like I'm not feeding my baby enough, maybe I should give ghee, maybe I should like overfeed him and whatever. And I'm just literally following that path. And it took me years, not like way after my baby, my son was more of a baby, like he was a toddler into his primary school. I think by the time he got into middle school was when I finally grew up and I was like, what am I even doing? Why do I keep listening to other people's advice and take it as law and then just apply it? Why am I not able to see for my own self what is right for my son and what is right for me? And it took me, in fact, when you were pregnant and when you had Vikram, and I realized, well, you're not listening to anybody. Like you're doing the exact opposite of what everybody's telling you. In my mind, I was like, okay, they're telling you to do this and you're doing B. Like, and Vikram is just fine and you're just fine. And that, it took me that long, and it took me your example 10 years later to recognize that I could have had a very growth mindset here. I could have tried and experimented and figured a way out. So I really regret it. I mean, ultimately things work out one way or the other. Not that others' advice are not powerful, but what I'm trying to say is that I did not seek my own inner guidance here, which I believe would have been more beneficial.
okay? Absolutely. I think that early motherhood is is a struggle, and I think with you again, you did add the disclaimer that you were also very young, right? And you didn't have internet, at least didn't have enough internet like I did to have like awareness about what is good, and you also, we have talked about other episode that you also were more towards like people pleasing side, which you have gotten over. So it's like what Ma is saying, what our in-laws are saying. It's like, all right, I don't know any better, so I'm just going to do it. But you can have your own path for your own child.
100%. And that's also like, because, we grew up in India and we're surrounded by South Asian relatives and obviously our parents. Do you think, I have a point of view on this, like how
You,
it impacted?
you tell me, South Asian parents like mindset. How do you think that has affected us? Like, do you think they, our parents, have growth mindset in some area versus fixed in others? And how do you think that has had an impact on us as their kids?
I think like um so I'll answer how I got somewhat negatively impacted because of my own lack of growth mindset and so I just explained my own parenthood there. But even marriage, right? We've both had arranged marriages. which is neither here nor there. Like, it does not imply fix or growth, but we made a choice. But I remember early on, and maybe it is just because I was so young, I was like, okay, a wife is supposed to behave a certain way, and a wife is supposed to do certain tasks. And even though we had moved to the US as a couple, that fixed mindset carried over for just a little bit, like I'll say 6 months, and then I was like, I this is how I live my life as a couple. But I will say those 6 months I made a solid attempt at becoming a perfect wife. I'm like, I am gonna cook the best meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I am gonna behave a certain way. I'm gonna always listen to my husband. My husband controls the finances. My husband tells us where to go. And in 6 months, I'm like, this is not working out. It's super boring. I am going to do the way things the way I do. And we were way happier, I'll tell you. My husband appreciated me more because I was myself. I was doing things that I've always done, which is be myself and cook when I want to cook, not cook when I don't want to cook. Tell him where I want to go, tell him the house I want, pretty much make all the decisions. And this is very unlike what we grew up with. So for one reason or another, like that's like we've typically seen in most of the families that we grew around with, the woman, the wife would more or less agree with whatever the husband had to say. The husband would dictate things. So that's, I think, like a fixed mindset that's gone on for generations. And it's probably taken financial independence, perhaps, and also the maturity of men in general to allow women to come to their own. So I will also say that, like, our mom, for example, she has a growth mindset within the spectrum of what the society allows her. Right. So I will give her kudos for wanting to break the mold. But there's only so much you can do when you're living in a certain bubble. Like, she was always very much pro education. She was like, for you and me, like, go do your thing, like, don't worry about all of that. She was even clothing, again, it seems frivolous, but all of that is suggestive of what you're thinking under the hood, right? Like, she would never be like, oh, you guys only wear salwar kurta. And remember, we grew up in the 80s,
Mhm.
1980s and 1990s, where that was typically what you'd wear in a small town in India. But she was like, no, go wear jeans if you want to wear jeans, right? Like, do your thing. And all of that helped us realize that we could do our own thing.
Mhm.
So I really appreciated, that part of her.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think they have growth mindset in so many things. Like if you remember when we were kids, education, they kind of like that the thing that they used to say made like indelible mark on our minds because they always said beauty is in it has its own place, fashion has its own place. Without education, you guys are nowhere. Do you remember? I mean, whatever emotional torture that they did to us, and it all paid off because we are where we are because of our education. It's like they kind of pushed us that path. Like they didn't leave the country; they kind of pushed us. All right, go explore whatever you have to do whatever you have to do. And yeah, there's a lot of mindset too. Like I'll give you an example. When I was pregnant, I was documenting my journey through Instagram. So I would like post pictures and videos of my belly, and I think it was a little bit of superstitious. And she would always say, "Oh, you post your naked belly on Instagram." It's like, yeah, ma, it's just a belly. I mean, who cares? I mean, and she would be like, "Oh, nahi beta, aisa peet nahi dikhana chahiye." In I said that in English is like should not show when you're pregnant, you should not show your belly like out in the world. And I you know me. I was like, "Ma, it's fine. I'll do whatever." But in her mind, it's like I think it was more of a superstitious thing, or you're pregnant, or nazar lag jayega, and all of those things. But I did what I wanted to do because you cannot tell like a grown woman what to post and what not to post. But otherwise, I think. If I want to give you an example of like fixed mindset that they have, and in the spectrum, it's like she still says it, and that hurts me. It's like because she says like, "Oh, you're working from home, then why is Vikram, my 7-year-old, is going to school?" And working from home doesn't mean I'm
Not work.
around just because my laptop is on dining space. That doesn't mean I have work to do. So it's very hard for her or them to comprehend that we do real work. Just because I work from home doesn't mean I don't have deadlines, or I'm not doing competitive things, or I'm not adding value. I think that is something they struggle with, how important a job is it's not like the husband is doing more meaningful thing and I'm just doing a side gig. This is not side gig. This is real stuff. I think they still struggle with this aspect. I don't know if you'll agree, but you have been more explaining to them. I don't have enough time to explain to her what I do, and I don't think she understands. But I think you have talked to her about, like, I'm in a leadership meeting. I am leading this. I am literally doing that, and you have been like more vocal about it, and I'm trying to do the same. It's like, Ma, what I do is really important. It is very impactful. I'm doing this. So I think she's getting there, but I think it's hard for her to comprehend what exactly it is to work outside, because we are just on a different version of software and she's on a different version. I feel like it's a little hard, and I don't mean to like shame anybody. I'm just
No,
expressing uh,
no. This is a great conversation actually, and that reminded me. I think like, to a great extent, it is the conditioning, and it is not just our mom, right? Like I feel like most women, most women, I'm sorry to say, like the assumption is that, well, if she is working, it couldn't possibly be as important or as tiring as her husband's. So this means she must come back home. She must be cooking. She must be cleaning all the home maintenance, anything to do with the kid. She must be doing all the gardening and everything. She must still be doing. And of course, she will be doing because, like, either she's a superhuman or because, her work is just not equally important or hard as her husband. And I know we're talking about our mom, and like, I think like for our mom, even though she was so pro education, she was like, you guys need to have a career. She always meant it as a side career that just exists. If you're into your job or if you're into a career, that is it. Like, you are into your job or into your career. And I think it's harder for someone like her, or people who have not lived that life, to comprehend, because they may not have just seen it, right? They just may not have seen it. So it's just harder to imagine what it could be. And I think that's what I try to, whenever I talk to her and she's like, oh, so what did you cook today? Is your dinner ready? She inevitably, like, we talk every day. She inevitably asks me every day, and every single day I'm like, I don't know. When Ashish, my husband's back, we'll figure it out. And it's just hard for her because she cannot comprehend how a woman would not be thinking about dinner. So I don't know, like, it's probably fixed mindset, but also because she has not lived that life,
Mhm.
and has not seen us live that life as closely. So it's just harder to comprehend. But it really is, it saddens me sometimes when, it is still hard for most women to understand that, as women, we have to empower each other and be like,
I know.
hey, you guys are working so hard, like, take some time off, take some
I've
rest.
become more vocal. Like last weekend, Vikram was sick. My son was sick, and I had to go out for a brunch. And I was talking to my FaceTime, and I said, "Oh yeah, Vikram is sick, and I have to go. I'm running late. I have to go out for a brunch." And so she was like, "Oh, you're going." So, but Vikram is not. I'm like, he has a runny nose, but you know, the dad is there. Siddharth, my husband, is there. It's like, but you are going, and I'm like, yeah, I have plans. The father is here, he's going to take. It's like, oh no, no, the kid needs the mom. It's like, no, he doesn't. And I got really upset, and I kind of said, and she just changed the topic because she got uncomfortable. So that was sitting there.
Mhm.
He was like, I am going to go. The dad is right here, and Vikram just has a runny nose. I mean, he's comfortable at home with the dad. Oh, but so you are still going? Is like, I'm not going to change a plan because you know what I mean. Like, it was so hard for her to comprehend that I am stepping out and enjoying my life while my son has a runny nose. Like, yeah, I mean, there is one parent available readily to take care of, but yeah, it was hard for her to comprehend. But I spoke my mind. It's like, I'm going, and
And that's you breaking that mold and, not having the fixed mindset. But I will say, like, this is such a topic for another podcast, because I'm like, it is not just her, it is most
I've
people.
been thinking about, like, do you think growth mindset is just like intrinsic, or do you think people around you help shape? Do they have a role to play? And I very strongly feel that even though for me growth mindset is internal, obviously I want to do something, I'm going to do it, I work hard to achieve it, but I also feel like people around me matter a lot, because growth mindset is not just personal, it's also the environment. And I've been extremely fortunate to have like a small group of friends who always cheer for me, who always believe in me. My husband especially is the one of those people. He pushes me in good ways and sometimes believes in me more than I believe in myself. And I feel like he sees potential in me that sometimes I don't see in myself, and that kind of belief really matters, and it can literally change the way you see yourself. So, and I also feel that some people don't grow because they're afraid to outgrow people
Mhm.
around them. And so growth mindset sometimes does mean you have to be brave enough to, kind of keep evolving. And if that means a relationship no longer fits that version of you, you have to leave that behind. You have to emerge. And I don't mean to be like harsh and dramatic, but it's just, I just feel, honestly feel I have left people behind because they just were not able to accept how I was evolving and how I was growing. And it just was such a drastic change for them. It's like, this is a new me. Is you get this or no other version. So yeah, I mean, I think even the workplace, I've seen some toxic, not, I shouldn't use the word toxic, because some of the workplace do have this culture. It's like they kind of motivate innate brilliance, and people like stop asking questions, they stop taking risks, they stop admitting mistakes because they're afraid to look dumb. But in a growth culture, and I'm fortunate to also work in place that kind of cater the growth culture, people are allowed to learn, try, fail, improve, and all of this really matters. It's like you belong here, you can grow here. So I feel like environment matters, your company matters, people around you matter for growth mindset. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I intrinsically have a growth mindset as well. I mean, if I don't like something, I'm just going to change it. If I don't like the people around me, I will change that environment. And I do not believe in sticking to something that's not making me happy or that's not particularly beneficial to me or the folks around me. So I've always taken that call, and I've always feel guilty about it. That's something I will add. I'm like, it took me a while to understand why I am the way I am, because a lot of people around me were not like that, right? Like they would value consistency, what they call consistency, or value having a certain way of living or doing. And in my case, I will switch the moment I think that is the right thing to do. And that is a fact. I will completely change my environment. I will redesign everything so that it fits my current belief system. And that pivot can happen at any point in time. I have no problem with that. So yes, so it definitely comes very intrinsically to me. Now the thing I do believe is, one, like, you can also grow yourself into it over time. It is harder, and I absolutely believe you and I are very fortunate that for whatever reason we have that in us as well. Like either we, maybe we grew up with it, maybe we saw papa or our mom having it to some extent and we got it, or we were just born with it. I have no idea. But like, if those who believe they don't have it intrinsically, they can grow into it. And I'll give the example of my husband, who is inherently of a fixed mindset, which means like he comes in saying, this is how I am, this is how I talk, this is the place I worked in, these are the skills I have, this is the house I've always lived in, these are the friends I've always had. And he truly does not believe any of that can be changed. And he does not I mean, he does not look forward to change, or is not able to change himself quickly when a change does happen or is forced upon him. He gets upset. So we all get upset, but the difference is like, how do you handle it after, right? And so when he and I talk, and he's very aware of it, he's incredibly self aware. And he totally, just like you said, like your husband, Siddharth, really appreciates you for moving to different avenues. My husband also is highly appreciative of that. Like, he totally is like, I don't know how you do it. I really appreciate it because you keep our life moving, you keep things changing. And he appreciates that. And that's what I love. I also realized that in spite of our almost 22 years of a marriage, I have actually not made a dent to his behavior. Like, he still has a fixed mindset, he still gets upset. But we match each other well. So because I move things along and he goes along with it, it works out really well. So that's another way of looking at it, was like, he didn't need to have a growth mindset for us to have a great relationship. He's happy the way he is and he's thriving the way he is, and I appreciate him for that. and he appreciates me for what I am, and we do really well together. So that's one angle. But yes, like if I have a group of acquaintances, or just like, or I'm in a workplace where it's not where my what I want to do or my thoughts are aligned with, I will move on, and that's perfectly fine by me. um so that's my answer, I guess, to the question of like how much is it designed and how much it is intrinsic. It's probably both, but if it's intrinsic, you have an edge in that. You will just make those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, you're also very gritty. Like, I mean, that's the other thing you have. Like, you recognize the behavior, you know it's not serving you, and you change it. I mean, you feel guilty, you feel bad about it, but I'm assuming that feeling doesn't stay long because you keep changing it, right? So,
I would have forgotten. I would have forgotten what I was feeling like in 5 minutes. But like I truly believe that I have been able to grow out of a lot of my own issues, a lot of my own intrinsic challenges, just because I have this where the moment I switch my environment, the moment I decide this is what I'm gonna do, history is history, past is past. I've already moved on. Yeah.
okay.
All right, let's talk about kids, right? I think it's very important for us to, in my opinion, see if we can instill this idea of growth mindset in our kids. And I was wondering how you do that with Vikram.
So I recently learned something that completely, changed the way I talk to my son Vikram, who's now 7, and the whole concept of fixed and growth mindset in kids. And honestly, it hit me hard because I realized that for a really long time I have been praising my son's intelligence. So I say, "Oh, you are so smart. You are so intelligent." And obviously that helps confidence in some way, but sometimes we were also accidentally kind of teaching him that if this doesn't work out, that means maybe you're not intelligent, or maybe if you're not smart, like if he's doing something. And then I started noticing last year that if he's struggling with a puzzle, he would say something like, "Oh, I am not smart." And the first time I heard it, I'm like, he was only 6, and I'm like, why is a 6-year-old guy saying I'm not smart because he was struggling with like 200-piece puzzle? And I'm like, this was a huge wake up call for me. And I realized that these are hard feelings, right? It means it's not that he's not smart, it's just that he's not able to understand that this requires more effort. So I made a very conscious shift, and instead of focusing on like intelligence all the time, I praise effort, and I praise like his persistence and the progress. So I say something like, "Oh, you that was so much effort you put in this, and even if something is not perfect," and I'm like, "Look at the focus, your focus grew so much." And I want him to understand that growth matters more than perfection, and if he's struggling doesn't mean you're not capable, it does mean just you are just learning. So I think that has really helped. I avoid using the word like intelligent and smart. It was like, even if he does something very well, it's like A for effort. That was so good. And then one of the other thing that I have started doing is like every night we do like your high points and low points. And now along with the low points, when he says low point, or and he would say something like, "Oh, today I started learning fractions and I have no idea what that is," or "I started learning how to see time, but I just don't understand what the teacher said when you add 1 hour to 1.5 hour." It's like he's just getting confused. And then and then I would say, "Oh, all right, so what did you learn from that? Like, obviously that was your low point, but did you learn anything?" And most of the time he's like, "Oh, I don't know, I learned nothing." But I'm like, "Okay, but you did get closer. You understood if you add 1 hour to 1 p.m., that means it becomes like 2 hour. You learn something." And one of the other example that I want to say is like yesterday we went to farmers market, and he was climbing a tree, and he was really struggling to climb a tree, and he was slipping, and he was like really disappointed. He went on for like 15-20 minutes. He couldn't reach where he had to, and then he had this small face, and I asked, "Hey Vikram, what's happening? How are you feeling?" And he said, "I'm very disappointed." And I said, "Why do you feel that way?" And he said, "Because there's a little kid who passed me, and he was smaller than me, and he was able to climb and I couldn't climb."
Mm.
And I asked, "So what did you learn? Like, I know you're feeling disappointed, but did you learn anything from there?" It's like, "No." It's like, "Try harder. You learned something." And he said, "Yeah, I learned one thing, that I have to trust myself. And even if you push me, I'm not going to reach there."
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to give him a push to reach. And obviously, if his feet is slipping, and he was like, see, you learned something. You have to trust yourself. Climbing a tree is a skill. I
Yeah.
can push you only so much. You have
Yeah.
to climb. And the fact that he understood, and then I kept encouraging, like, so what else did you learn? He's like, keep trying. Next Saturday when I come, maybe I try harder. He's like, yeah, see, you're on the right track. So what I was trying to do is like, this is a failed moment, but let's not that failed moment go to waste. Let's see what you can get out of it. So yeah, I mean, this conversation, I don't think we were brought up that way. It's harder for me to have this conversation about feeling and getting something out of failure, because for us it was like we never celebrated failures, or we never like talked about failure, like only when something is success we celebrated. But now this process has to be celebrated, and that's what I'm trying to do, is like, this is a growth mindset, right? Like you didn't get where you wanted to be, but this is the journey, you learn something. So yeah.
Yeah, this reminded me of this beautiful quote from that book, the horse, the mole, and the fox. I think
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
beautiful illustrated book. I think one of the quotes there is one of the greatest or one of the biggest freedoms we have is how we react to things,
Mhm.
right? I love that quote so much. I literally have it hanging in my house. Um, because to your point, right? Like that's like I feel like everything you said is also about how you communicate with your son. That's what I do not know how much I was able to change my son, whether he was fixed or growth. Like I know he was somewhere in between, but the communication line was always open. It was never like, okay, you want to learn about insects? Like, what good is that going to do in your life? Probably nothing. And you'll probably forget about it in 2 years, which he did. But while he was learning insects, he was learning all about insects. And he and I would learn everything about insects. And what it did was first, it got us closer. But second, it introduced this desire to learn, to pick up anything, to go really deep into it. And in that moment, know as much as possible about it. That is all. Like, as human beings, the best thing we can do is learn and grow and evolve, right? Like, and so that's like the growth mindset in a nutshell to me. And I feel like that's what's helped him along as well. He is particularly proud of his fitness journey, and how he incorporated health and just strength training and so on in his lifestyle. And that was amazing because it came in handy for me, because he passed that on to me. And fortunately for me, I was able to accept his advice and start my own fitness journey, right? So I think, like, you're right. Like, with kids, the more we talk, the more we encourage them, and the more we participate in that, that's already growth mindset for them in action.
I don't know if I've ever told you. You taught me a lot about growth minds, especially with kids. Like when Aryan was younger, and if you remember, in his middle school age, he wanted to play basketball, and there were some rowdy guys who would not pass him the ball or something, and he would come back home and he would always talk to you about. It's like, he still didn't give me the ball today or something. You never tried to solve the problem for him. I never saw you solving. And the way you would communicate with him is like, talk to me. And you would just let him talk. And he would keep complaining, oh, that guy was rude to me, or that guy didn't pass me the ball. And you never tried to solve the problem. That was so amazing. It's like the movie show, oh, the mother is going and fighting with the principal, or like, and you would say, this is your fight. You have to figure it out. Either you go and get the ball, or you get out of the way, or do something else. Do something. But he figured it out, right? I mean, you didn't. You cannot solve that. He has to figure it out. So you gave him the space, and he figured it out. And he's such a like independent guy. He's like, I'm not going to take any BS from anybody. I'm just going to stand up for myself. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hopefully that helps. I know.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about a few practical tips before we wrap this up. So I know we've talked about what it is and where it shows up, but would there be, like, do you have any tips on how would we actually shift from fixed to growth mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think like changing your inner voice really helps. The way you talk to yourself, like you are your best friend, not just saying that, oh, you are such an idiot for failing, or I didn't do it, but you can reframe the voice in your head by being going from a critique to a cheerleader. And I think that is brilliant. Like negative self-talk doesn't help. It's just, keep cheering yourself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, especially I know like you are very close to your friends or folks who have accountability partners, like that could be leveraged as well, where it is. I think Jay Shetty's comment was accountability and community is so underrated and underestimated. And that is true because when you have an accountability partner, you can share how you reacted to a certain situation with them, and then they will keep you honest. And
Mhm.
that's very hard, right? Like it's very hard to be objective about your own behavior. So that's helpful.
Like we are accountability partners, right? We started this, we keep each other accountable. Doing this is not easy, right? Doing a podcast, I mean, it sounds like we're just talking, but there's so much work that goes into prepping for a podcast, editing it, getting it out in the world. It is a lot of work, but we keep each other accountable, and that's why, we are here, we are.
I know, and I don't think folks get like it is not at all easy. Like for me to suddenly comment to you and say, "Hey, I have an idea. Let's talk," and then share a bunch of different ideas at you, and you're like, "I got a 7-year-old kid. I got a full-time job," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, but
well, can you not prioritize this? But can you not prioritize this?" And
and
then
that's where the power of yet comes into play. you know I didn't say no, I said not yet, I'll get to it. So
yeah, definitely. I think we our both growth mindset becomes hyper growth mindset, which is sometimes a problem. But yeah, we've definitely brought this podcast to life, which was absolutely unthinkable. All right, and then the other thing that we could add is setting intentions, right? Like intentionality always helps, which is like maybe you wake up in the morning and you tell yourself you're going to be curious today, or you're going to be creative today, or you're going to do one thing that you just wouldn't have that would have made you uncomfortable. And all of that is essentially growth mindset.
yeah. And just the last one, I think the consistency over intensity is like just showing up every day, giving your the best you can, and that's how I think you become like extraordinary. Is like you don't have to give 100% all the time, even if you get like 8 out of 10, it's still something. So it's like you slowly you reach where you want to be. So
Yeah, and I think that's the one that's the most freeing because it's not like, oh, let us become the most perfect person, the Olympiad or Olympian in this. We can do our own thing, have our own progress, measure our own progress, and be happy with it, right? Like we don't need validation from a bunch of different groups or people. And that is it. I think we can wrap our episode. And if you love this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And please feel free to share it with somebody who you feel would enjoy this as well.
and you can reach us at hello@chocolateandspicetalk.com. We have our own blog, our website, Instagram, YouTube, wherever is helpful. Just go watch our podcast, communicate. We love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.